Have you ever noticed how the quality of your entire day seems determined in those first few moments after you open your eyes? That split second when consciousness returns and before the world comes rushing in, that moment contains more power than most of us realize. What if I told you that the first 30 minutes after waking up literally shapes your reality for the next 24 hours? Has this ever happened to you? You wake up, immediately reach for your phone, and suddenly an hour has passed while you've scrolled through endless content, feeling a strange mix of anxiety, inadequacy, and overwhelm, all before you've even had breakfast. Your morning mind is like fertile soil, exceptionally receptive to whatever seeds you plant within it. As Neville Goddard brilliantly observed, the morning is when your subconscious mind is most receptive to new impressions. This isn't just philosophical wisdom. It's a practical truth that can transform your life when applied consistently. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Think about it. In that pure potential of early morning consciousness, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to intentional living, the other to being swept away by whatever the day brings. The choice you make in those first waking moments determines whether your mind becomes your most powerful weapon or your most confining prison. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might surprise you, even shock you, about how much power you're giving away before your day has properly begun. Most people, unfortunately, surrender their creative power immediately upon waking. They allow their consciousness to be hijacked by the thoughts, opinions, and energies of others through that small glowing screen. Before they've even set their own intentions, they've already absorbed dozens of conflicting messages about who they should be and what they should want. Goddard reminds us that your imagination creates reality. When you hand over the reins of your imagination first thing in the morning, you're essentially letting someone else create your reality. You're letting external influences determine your internal state, but it doesn't have to be this way. What if instead you reclaimed those precious morning moments? What if you recognized that the state of consciousness from which you operate, quite literally, determines the world you inhabit? The decision between mental strength and weakness is made within those first 30 minutes after waking. The truth is, your mind can be wielded as the most powerful tool in your arsenal, or it can become the prison that limits everything you experience. And this choice, this crucial decision, happens in those quiet moments when you first awaken, before the noise of the world drowns out your own inner voice. Now, the hidden truth that transformed my own journey begins with a simple realization. While we cannot control the external world and its endless chaos, we have absolute dominion over our internal landscape. This revelation changed everything for me. Think about it. The traffic jam that makes you late, the rude comment from a colleague, the unexpected bill. None of these circumstances are within your control, but your response, that's entirely yours. This is where the real power lies. As Goddard so eloquently expressed, change your assumption and you change your world. The mastery of your inner realm begins in that sacred moment when your eyes first open. The decisions you make in those initial minutes set the foundation for how you'll respond to whatever the day throws at you. The universe offers us an incredible gift that most people completely overlook. Every sunrise functions as a cosmic reset button. No matter what happened yesterday, the mistakes, the regrets, the failures, each morning presents you with a clean slate, a fresh canvas awaiting your creative imprint. This natural rhythm of renewal is built into the very fabric of existence, yet so few tap into its transformative potential. During sleep, as Goddard taught us, Man impresses the subconscious with his conception of himself. Those quiet hours of rest prepare your mind for reprogramming. When you awaken, you have a precious opportunity to impress upon your subconscious exactly who you wish to be today, not who you were yesterday. This mindset shift creates a profound ripple effect throughout your entire being. By deliberately choosing who you'll be today, rather than defaulting to who you've been, you initiate a journey of constant renewal and evolution. Each morning becomes not just the start of another day, but the birth of a new version of yourself. Here's where the magic truly happens. When you take command of your morning, you generate a momentum that carries you through the remaining hours with remarkable force. Like a boulder rolling downhill, the energy you create in those first waking moments gathers strength as the day progresses. This is what Goddard would describe as the law of assumption in action. By assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled right at the beginning of your day, you activate powerful forces that continue working on your behalf. If these morning principles resonated with you, hit that subscribe button to join our community of intentional creators. I share powerful consciousness techniques that you won't find in mainstream personal development. The impact of this practice cannot be overstated. Those who master their mornings find themselves navigating life's challenges with a centered presence that seems almost superhuman to others. Behind the scenes of every great achievement lies this fundamental, in practice, winning the morning to win the day. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how the most successful people throughout history have utilized these exact principles to create extraordinary lives. Their morning rituals weren't just habits, they were deliberate systems for consciousness creation. If what I've shared resonates with your experience, write "morning mastery" in the comments below. These morning principles I'm sharing aren't mere contemporary trends or quick-fix techniques. What truly fascinates me is how they've been silently shaping the destinies of history's most extraordinary figures across millennia. Behind every revolutionary breakthrough, every masterpiece created, every empire built, you'll find this same fundamental understanding of morning consciousness. The archaeological evidence of morning rituals appears consistently across diverse civilizations, from ancient emperors to military strategists, from artists to philosophers. These weren't just habits, they were deliberate systems for mental mastery. Neville Goddard recognized what these historical titans understood intuitively. Mental discipline isn't a luxury, but the essential foundation upon which all achievement rests. When you study the journals and personal writings of history's most influential figures, a pattern emerges. Their private revelations about morning practices often directly contradicted their public personas. Their secret weapon wasn't superior intellect or luck, but this hidden discipline of mind cultivation before dawn. Their morning routine was the invisible architecture supporting their visible monuments. The transformation that occurs when you implement these principles extends far beyond your individual experience. You unconsciously join a lineage of awakened individuals, people who have chosen conscious creation over unconscious reaction. It's a decision to step outside the matrix of automated living that traps most of humanity. As Goddard would remind this awakened community, when you know what you want, you have made your future, and insignificant are the means that bring it about. This profound insight illuminates the true journey we're undertaking, not merely improving our mornings, but fundamentally altering the relationship between our consciousness and reality itself. The awakened mind no longer sees barriers but pathways, no longer fears obstacles but anticipates breakthroughs. The most precious resource we possess isn't money or status, but time, specifically the present moment. Every sunrise delivers 24 pristine hours that belong exclusively to you. No force in the universe can take them from you, but equally, no power can restore them once spent. The present moment is all you have for creating, Goddard taught, distilling a universe of wisdom into one sentence. These hours will vanish regardless of how you use them. The decision before you isn't whether time will pass, it's whether you'll fill it with mindful creation or allow it to dissipate in mindless consumption. Most people's days happen to them. The awakened individual happens to their day, shaping each hour with deliberate intention. The most fascinating aspect of time's passage is how it compounds your choices. Each morning becomes a decisive moment that echoes throughout your entire life's timeline. Your destiny unfolds not in dramatic leaps, but in these quiet daily decisions about how you'll direct your consciousness. Upon waking, let me show you precisely how the greatest minds throughout history structured their morning consciousness to achieve seemingly impossible breakthroughs in their respective fields. Their methods were surprisingly simple but devastatingly effective. If you recognize yourself as someone who's ready to claim ownership of your mornings, type "I claim my time" in the comments below. The greatest illusion that robs us of our potential is the silent assumption that time is infinite. We drift through our days as if there will always be another morning, another opportunity, another chance to begin. This collective delusion has created a society of postponers, people who consistently delay their most meaningful actions to some imaginary future that never arrives. Each sunrise brings an irreplaceable gift that once gone can never be recovered. The mornings we sacrifice to mindless scrolling, the hours we surrender to distraction, these aren't merely lost moments, but fragments of our very existence disappearing into the void. As Goddard would urgently remind us, the time to act is now, not tomorrow, not when conditions seem perfect, not when you feel more prepared, now. This revelation strikes at the heart of human psychology. We intellectually understand our mortality, yet emotionally behave as if exempt from time's limitations. The awakening begins when you feel, not just know, that each morning holds finite, precious potential. This awareness creates an entirely different relationship with the dawn hours, one of reverence rather than casualness. The catalyst for this transformation comes through a deceptively simple practice, declaring ownership of your day the moment consciousness returns. Before your feet touch the floor, before external demands flood in, establish this fundamental truth. Today is mine. I own it. This isn't wishful thinking, but a foundational shift in identity. Goddard's profound teaching that I am is the self-definition of the absolute reveals the metaphysical dimension of this declaration. When you state, "Today is mine," you're not merely expressing a preference, but invoking the creative principle of the universe itself. By claiming ownership of your day, you're reclaiming the divine power that's always been yours, but rarely recognized. The implications of this ownership extend far beyond productivity or achievement. We're discussing nothing less than the reclamation of your sovereign consciousness from the forces that would fragment and diminish it. This declaration serves as a boundary that protects your internal kingdom from invasion. Perhaps the most profound insight in this entire exploration is recognizing that each day functions as a perfect microcosm of your entire life. The patterns that shape your morning inevitably shape your decades. How you handle the small moments directly reflects how you'll handle life's most significant challenges and opportunities. Goddard articulated this principle with striking clarity. Your assumptions, though false if persisted in, will harden into fact. Every morning represents a concentrated opportunity to establish the assumptions that will ultimately crystallize into your lived experience. Make today count with full consciousness, and you inevitably make your life count. This perspective transforms ordinary mornings into extraordinary opportunities for reality creation. The seemingly mundane moments after waking become recognized as the quantum field of unlimited potential, the place where your life is actually being fashioned, choice by choice, assumption by assumption. Let me reveal how this understanding manifests differently across various personality types, and why certain morning practices resonate more powerfully depending on your unique psychological wiring. If you've experienced the profound truth that today's patterns create tomorrow's reality, share "Patterns Become Destiny" in the comments below. When we examine what truly matters in life, what goal is actually worth pursuing above all others, we discover something remarkable. Freedom is the ultimate aim, not the superficial freedom that most chase after. More money, more possessions, more status, but the profound inner freedom that comes from mastering your own domain of influence. This sovereignty of spirit arises when you shift your attention away from what lies beyond your control and focus intensely on what falls within your sphere of influence. The boundary between these two realms defines the territory of your authentic power. As Goddard brilliantly observed, man's faith in God is measured by his confidence in himself. This statement reveals the sacred connection between self-trust and spiritual alignment. They are not separate but unified aspects of the same consciousness. The blueprint for this inner confidence emerges naturally each morning as you practice discernment between what you can and cannot control. This daily ritual of mental sorting becomes the foundation upon which all meaningful freedom is built. Without it, you remain perpetually reactive, a leaf blown by winds you didn't create. Consider the fundamental distinction that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary journeys. While external circumstances remain largely beyond your control, your responses to those circumstances belong entirely to you. Weather patterns, other people's actions, economic fluctuations, these forces operate according to their own laws, but your interpretation, your emotional reaction, your chosen response, these constitute your sovereign territory. This journey of mental mastery is just beginning. Subscribe to dive deeper into these transformative principles and discover how small shifts in consciousness create massive changes in your reality. As Goddard expressed with such elegant precision, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. This insight reveals the mechanism by which inner transformation creates outer revolution. When you no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstance, but as the author of your experience, the entire landscape of your life undergoes a metamorphosis. The rain will fall whether you wish it or not. The question that determines your destiny is whether you'll complain about the downpour or grab an umbrella and dance in the puddles. This choice, this moment of decision, represents the essence of human dignity and the wellspring of all genuine empowerment. This perspective naturally transforms how you perceive each day. Rather than treating tomorrow as guaranteed, you recognize the precious, unrepeatable gift that today represents. This awareness doesn't create pressure or anxiety, but rather a delicious intensity of presence, a heightened appreciation for the canvas of hours before you. The time which we have at our disposal every day is elastic, Goddard would remind us. This elasticity isn't a physical property, but a perceptual one. Presence and intention literally expand your experience of time, while distraction and automaticity contract it. The identical span of 24 hours feels vastly different to the conscious creator than to the unconscious consumer. When you truly internalize the irreplaceable nature of each day, procrastination naturally dissolves. The illusion of perfect timing evaporates in the light of this understanding. There is only now, this moment, this breath, this opportunity. Everything else exists merely as concept, as potential, as imagination. Let me share with you the surprising discoveries from neuroscience that explain why your brain's morning state creates a unique window for identity reconstruction that simply doesn't exist later in the day. If you've started to recognize the profound value hidden in each morning, share "Each day is sacred" in the comments section. The most profound revelation neuroscience has validated in recent years is something the wisdom traditions have taught for millennia. Your thoughts literally shape your reality. This isn't metaphorical or philosophical, it's biological and neurological. Each thought creates physical pathways in your brain, releases specific chemicals throughout your body, and fundamentally alters your perception of what's possible. The quality of these thoughts, their vibration, their emotional texture, their inherent belief structure, determines the quality of your life far more than external factors ever could. Your circumstances, bank account, relationships, these are downstream effects, not primary causes. As Goddard articulated with remarkable precision, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows. This insight reveals the hidden mechanism behind reality creation. When you mentally and emotionally inhabit the state of having already achieved your desire, your attention naturally moves along pathways that lead to its manifestation. The blueprint precedes the building. The internal architecture shapes the external landscape with unfailing precision. Yet most people live their entire lives without ever deliberately training this most essential instrument, their mind. They would never expect an untrained body to perform athletic feats or an untrained voice to sing opera, yet they allow their untrained minds to dictate the entire course of their existence. The results are predictably chaotic. The whole vast world is no more than man's imagining pushed out, taught Goddard. This statement isn't mystical hyperbole, but a profound psychological truth. Your perception creates your experience. Your interpretation creates your world. Your imagination, when disciplined and directed, becomes the most powerful creative force in your personal universe. This understanding transforms the morning ritual from a simple habit into a sacred practice of reality creation. Those first moments after waking become the forge in which you deliberately shape the mental patterns that will manifest throughout your day. This isn't self-improvement, it's conscious evolution, the deliberate direction of your mind's extraordinary creative capacity. The essential skill in this practice is learning to catch your thoughts before they catch you. Negative thought patterns, doubt, fear, unworthiness will inevitably arise. The untrained mind becomes their victim. The trained mind recognizes them as merely suggestions that can be accepted or declined. When these thoughts appear, don't let them take root. Question them, challenge them. Examine their origins and validity. Goddard would advise, if you can forgive yourself for having created the unwanted condition, you can then imagine what you desire and feel yourself to be it. This profound psychological insight reveals how self-forgiveness creates the space for new patterns to emerge. The most revolutionary aspect of thought management isn't suppression, but redirection. Rather than fighting against negative patterns, which paradoxically strengthens them through attention, you simply choose to place your consciousness elsewhere. This shift represents the fundamental distinction between mental mastery and mental victimhood. Let me walk you through the specific brainwave states that make your morning mind uniquely receptive to new programming, and how you can leverage these states to accelerate your transformation in ways that would be neurologically impossible at other times of day. If you've noticed how powerfully your morning thoughts influence your entire day, share "Thoughts Create Worlds" in the comments. What makes this work in brain science is fascinatingly simple. Your morning brain operates primarily in theta and alpha wave states, creating a bridge between your conscious and subconscious mind that simply doesn't exist once you're fully awake. This neurological window offers unparalleled access to the deeper patterns that govern your perception and behavior. The revelation that transforms lives comes when you recognize how much unnecessary suffering you create through imagination alone. Think about it. How many hours, days, perhaps even years of your life have you spent worrying about scenarios that never materialized? The mind's tendency to catastrophize, to envision worst-case outcomes, creates genuine physiological stress responses in your body that are indistinguishable from actual threats. As Goddard insightfully noted, imagining creates reality, but first imagination will test you. This testing happens primarily through fear-based visualizations that feel compellingly real. Your evolutionary hardware hasn't caught up with modern life. It still triggers fight or flight responses for imagined dangers, just as it would for a physical predator. Mastering these mental tests becomes the foundation for intentional reality creation. This understanding doesn't suggest ignoring potential challenges, but rather approaching them strategically. The paradigm shift comes in recognizing that imagining obstacles can serve two entirely different purposes. It can either paralyze you with fear or prepare you with resilience. The difference lies in your relationship to these mental projections. To reach a state of complete attainment, you must abandon your conscious reasoning and induce a state akin to sleep, Goddard taught. This profound insight reveals the paradoxical journey. First, prepare thoroughly, then release completely. Consider obstacles, then surrender attachment to outcomes. This mental alchemy transforms anxiety into readiness without creating tension. The decisive moment in your day's trajectory comes each morning when you choose the lens through which you'll view your world. This decision, often made unconsciously, determines virtually everything that follows. What you are aware of being, you become, Goddard would remind us. Your identity, how you see yourself, functions as the organizing principle around which all perception arranges itself. Set your mental direction deliberately rather than defaulting to habitual patterns, or worse, allowing your untrained mind to bully you into a bad day. This intentional lens selection isn't positive thinking in the superficial sense. It's conscious reality creation at the most fundamental level. The lens you choose literally determines what data your brain allows into awareness and how that data gets interpreted. The internal narrative you establish in those first waking moments becomes the invisible script guiding your entire day's journey. Most people never recognize this mechanism, allowing random thoughts, external inputs, or past conditioning to establish their daily perspective without conscious intervention. Let me share the specific morning ritual that has transformed the lives of thousands by systematically reprogramming this mental lens through a precise sequence of consciousness-shifting practices. If you've noticed how your morning perspective colors your entire day's experience, share "Perspective is everything" in the comments below. The life-changing ritual I've found most effective begins with understanding this fundamental principle. The quality of your thoughts directly determines the quality of your actions. This isn't motivational rhetoric, but a psychological mechanism that operates with mathematical precision. Your thoughts function as seeds. Plant mediocre thoughts, harvest a mediocre life. Plant extraordinary thoughts, cultivate an extraordinary existence. As Goddard might express it, plant your dream in your mind, water it with attention, and it will grow into your reality. This agricultural metaphor perfectly captures the process of conscious creation. Each morning represents your daily planting season, the ideal time to select and nurture the mental seeds that will inevitably manifest in your external experience. What makes this morning planting so crucial is the heightened receptivity of your subconscious during these liminal moments between sleep and full wakefulness. Your mind's defenses are naturally lowered, allowing new programming to penetrate more deeply than at any other time. The garden of your consciousness is most fertile at dawn. Plant wisely. The transformation process requires not just adding new elements, but removing existing obstacles. One of the most liberating revelations in this journey comes when you truly understand this truth. You cannot change a single second of the past, not one word, not one action, not one decision. Yet most people drag yesterday's weight into today, carrying their failures and disappointments like a heavy backpack they refuse to set down. Goddard's revolutionary teaching offers the key to liberation. Disregard appearances, conditions, in fact all evidence of your senses that deny the fulfillment of your desire. This radical instruction includes disregarding yesterday's failures, yesterday's limitations, yesterday's identity. The blueprint for freedom lies in recognizing that the past exists only as mental constructs, memories and interpretations that hold power only if you continue to energize them. This perspective reveals the profound opportunity that each morning presents, not just a new day, but a genuine reset button for your entire life trajectory. Each dawn offers a chance to start fresh, to release what didn't work, and to step forward. Unburdened by the weight of regret or disappointment, this isn't spiritual bypassing, but psychological liberation, the conscious choice to redirect your creative energy from what was to what could be. You must be in the consciousness of being or having that which you want to be or have before you can receive it, Goddard instructed. This insight illuminates the mechanism of manifestation. Your conscious state precedes and determines your external experience. The morning reset allows you to deliberately choose this consciousness rather than defaulting to habitual patterns based on past experiences. The systematic application of this principle creates a fascinating phenomenon I've observed in those who master their mornings, a kind of psychological immunity to setbacks. When you truly internalize that each morning represents a clean slate, failures lose their power to define you. They become merely information, data points, learning opportunities rather than identity markers. Let me walk you through the counterintuitive discovery that transformed my own morning practice, why adding a specific type of constraint actually expands your mental freedom in ways that unlimited options never can. If you've experienced the liberation that comes from truly leaving yesterday behind each morning, share Fresh Start Mindset in the comments section. The counterintuitive discovery that revolutionized my approach to mornings came when I realized there's a profound distinction between learning from mistakes and dwelling on them. Most people conflate these two entirely different mental processes, remaining trapped in patterns that masquerade as reflection but actually function as rumination. True learning extracts the wisdom from an experience and then releases the emotional attachment. It says simply, I see what didn't work, and I'll implement this new understanding moving forward. Dwelling, by contrast, keeps you perpetually anchored to the past event, replaying it endlessly without extracting new insights. This subtle distinction creates dramatically different trajectories in your life's journey. As Goddard eloquently taught, the present moment is the narrow gate through which the power of imagination must pass. This insight reveals why dwelling is so detrimental. It occupies the precious mental space needed for creative imagination. When your consciousness remains fixated on yesterday's failures, there's literally no room for today's possibilities to emerge. The revelation that transforms your relationship with the past comes when you fully grasp this truth. It isn't what happened that causes suffering, but the story you've constructed about what happened. Your interpretation, the meaning you've assigned to events, determines their power over you. Two people can experience identical circumstances, yet create entirely different realities based solely on their interpretation. Change the concept of self, and you change the pattern of your life, Goddard would say. This profound psychological insight reveals the mechanism by which reinterpreting your past liberates your present. When you revise the meaning of past experiences, not denying they occurred but transforming how you relate to them, you literally rewrite the programming that shapes your current perception. This morning practice of mental revision isn't about creating false narratives, but about consciously choosing which aspects of your experience to emphasize. The mind automatically filters reality. You can either let this happen unconsciously based on habitual patterns, or you can direct this filtration process deliberately to support your evolution. Perhaps the most liberating breakthrough in this entire exploration is recognizing that you are not defined by your worst moment or your biggest mistake. The identity you've constructed around past failures exists purely as mental architecture that can be dismantled and reconstructed. Nothing stands between you and the fulfillment of your dreams but yourself and the beliefs you hold, Goddard taught. These beliefs are not immutable facts, but malleable constructs. Each morning grants you permission to become someone new, not through denial of what came before, but through the conscious decision about who you choose to be now. This perspective shift creates a profound psychological freedom that few ever experience. Most remain imprisoned by their past simply because they never realize they hold the key to their own cell. The most fascinating aspect of this process is how it fundamentally alters your relationship with time itself. Rather than experiencing life as a linear progression where the past determines the present, you begin to perceive each moment as a fresh portal of possibility. The weight of accumulated identity gradually dissolves, replaced by the lightness of present moment awareness and creative potential. Let me share the remarkable brain chemistry shifts that occur when you implement these principles consistently, how specific neurotransmitters respond to this morning practice and create cascading benefits throughout your entire biological system. If you've experienced the freedom that comes from recognizing you're not defined by your past mistakes, share "identity is fluid" in the comments below. What makes this morning practice so transformative on a biochemical level is the remarkable cascade of neurological changes it triggers. When you consistently implement these principles, your brain begins producing higher levels of serotonin and dopamine in the morning hours, creating what neuroscientists call a biochemical foundation for psychological resilience. This natural pharmacy within your skull responds powerfully to your morning mental state. The cornerstone of this neurochemical revolution is self-forgiveness, perhaps the most misunderstood yet essential element of morning consciousness. Many mistakenly believe forgiveness means pretending mistakes didn't happen or absolving yourself of responsibility. In reality, forgiveness is the mature recognition that continuing to punish yourself creates no benefit while consuming precious mental energy. Man's true self is God, Goddard would remind us. This profound insight reveals the divine nature at your core, a perfect essence that transcends temporary errors and limitations. Connecting with this higher self through compassionate self-forgiveness liberates enormous reserves of creative energy previously trapped in self-recrimination. The metaphysical dimension of this practice opens doorways to possibilities that rational analysis alone cannot access. When you align with your divine nature through forgiveness, you operate from a fundamentally different consciousness, one characterized by expansion rather than contraction, by possibility rather than limitation. This transformation begins with a simple yet powerful morning inquiry. Am I carrying something I don't need to carry? Examine the psychological baggage you're dragging into your fresh day: resentments, regrets, disappointments, perceived failures. Ask yourself honestly whether carrying these serves any constructive purpose. If not, make the conscious decision to set them down. The boundaries of man are self-imposed, Goddard observed with characteristic insight. The limitations constraining your life exist primarily as mental constructs that you've accepted as real. They form invisible chains that restrict your movement while creating the illusion of protection. By consciously releasing these self-imposed boundaries each morning, you create the psychological space needed for genuine growth and expansion. The revelation that ties together this entire framework of morning consciousness is simple yet revolutionary. Everything, your emotions, your actions, your relationships, your results, your entire experience of life, begins in your mind. External circumstances may trigger responses, but those responses originate in your mental patterns and programming. Consciousness is the only reality, as Goddard famously stated. This declaration isn't abstract philosophy, but practical psychology. Your consciousness, your awareness, your perception, your interpretation literally creates the reality you experience moment by moment. Master this consciousness, and you master your life. This understanding transforms the morning ritual from a simple habit into a sacred practice of reality, creation. Those first moments after waking become opportunities to deliberately shape the consciousness that will determine everything that follows. With consistent practice, you develop what might be called consciousness mastery, the ability to direct your mental states rather than being directed by them. Let me share the surprising discovery about what happens when you combine these principles with a specific breathing pattern that synchronizes your autonomic nervous system with your conscious intentions, creating a state of coherence that quantum biologists have only recently begun to understand. If you've experienced how dramatically your inner state impacts your external reality, share "inner creates outer" in the comments below. The synchronization between your breathing pattern and consciousness creates what quantum biologists call coherence, a state where your physiological systems align with your mental intentions. This coherence becomes particularly powerful during those liminal morning moments when the veil between your conscious and subconscious mind is naturally thinner. The breath pattern I've found most effective is remarkably simple. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6, hold for a count of 2. This 4-4-6-2 pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system while simultaneously creating the optimal brain state for imprinting new patterns onto your consciousness. When combined with deliberate self-forgiveness, this practice becomes transformative. Forgiveness in this context isn't a passive acceptance of wrongdoing, but an active reclamation of your energy and attention. It's the mature recognition that perpetual self-punishment serves no constructive purpose. As Goddard might express it, forgiveness is simply the recognition of your true nature beyond temporary errors. Man's true self is God, after all. The revelation that changes everything comes when you experience firsthand how this forgiveness practice literally rewires your neural circuitry. Neuroscience has documented how self-forgiveness activates regions of the prefrontal cortex associated with executive function, while simultaneously calming the amygdala's fear responses. This biological shift creates a foundation for entirely new possibilities to emerge. Each morning presents a choice point. Will you drag yesterday's chains into today, or will you move forward unencumbered? This daily decision shapes not just your immediate experience, but the trajectory of your entire life. The boundaries of man are self-imposed, Goddard observed. These boundaries exist primarily as thought patterns that can be released through conscious decision. Ask yourself this powerful question upon waking. What am I carrying today that I don't need to carry? Notice the emotional weight, the mental burden, the psychological constraints you've been accepting as necessary. Then make the deliberate choice to set them down, not through denial, but through conscious release. This simple practice creates immediate psychological freedom that radiates throughout your day. The blueprint underlying this entire framework is the recognition that consciousness precedes manifestation in every area of life. Your emotions, actions, relationships, results, these don't create your consciousness. They flow from it. Consciousness is the only reality, as Goddard famously stated. This isn't philosophical abstraction, but practical. Psychology that transforms how you navigate each day. The morning represents a unique opportunity to deliberately set this consciousness before the world's demands begin competing for your attention. Those first moments after waking are like the control room of your life, where the settings and parameters for everything that follows are established. Master this control room, and you master your experience. What makes this approach different from traditional morning routines is its focus on consciousness rather than behavior. While specific actions matter, they matter primarily as expressions and reinforcements of your conscious state. The interior landscape determines the exterior experience with unfailing precision. Let me reveal how the integration of physical movement with these consciousness principles creates a synergistic effect that amplifies your morning practice exponentially, activating what cellular biologists call embodied cognition, where your physical system becomes a powerful amplifier for your mental intentions. If you've discovered the liberation that comes through genuine self-forgiveness, share freedom through forgiveness in the comments below. The synergy between physical movement and consciousness creates what cellular biologists call embodied cognition, where your body becomes not just a vehicle for your mind, but an active participant in your cognitive processes. This discovery reveals why movement in the morning is so much more powerful than movement at other times of day. It literally encodes your mental intentions into your cellular memory. But before any physical routine can be effective, you must establish the foundational truth upon which all transformation rests. Your mind belongs to you alone. This sovereignty of consciousness represents your ultimate freedom and responsibility. In a world constantly competing for your attention, through notifications, headlines, and endless distractions, the declaration of mental ownership becomes a revolutionary act. As Goddard would say, what you consent to can only be given by your attention. This insight reveals the mechanism of mental capture. Your consciousness can only be hijacked through your own consent, usually given unconsciously through attention. By deciding first thing in the morning that your mind belongs to you and no one else, you establish the boundaries that protect your mental sovereignty throughout the day. This declaration of ownership creates an invisible shield around your consciousness, not rigid or defensive, but clear and intentional. You become the gatekeeper of your own attention, choosing deliberately what deserves entry into your mental space rather than passively absorbing whatever appears before you. The blueprint for leveraging this mental sovereignty emerges when you understand the physics principle that applies equally to consciousness as it does to physical objects. An object in motion stays in motion. How you start your day creates a momentum that carries forward with increasing force. This isn't metaphorical, but neurological. Initial neural firing patterns establish pathways that become increasingly dominant through repetition. The intensity of a feeling determines the swiftness of its externalization, Goddard taught. This revelation transforms how you approach your morning practice. The emotional quality you bring to your initial actions matters far more than the specific actions themselves. A few minutes of fully present, emotionally engaged practice creates more momentum than hours of mechanical routine. The paradigm shift that liberates you from procrastination comes when you truly understand this counterintuitive truth. You don't have to feel motivated to begin. Most people wait for inspiration, for the perfect emotional state, for the magical feeling of readiness that rarely arrives on schedule. The awakened individual recognizes that action precedes motivation, not the other way. Around, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, Goddard instructed. This teaching reveals the hidden mechanism of motivation. You can generate the desired feeling state through deliberate assumption rather than waiting for it to arise spontaneously. Your actions create the feeling, which then creates more aligned action in a powerful upward spiral. The morning becomes the ideal laboratory for this practice because your mind is naturally more receptive, less cluttered with the day's accumulations. Begin with physical movement, however simple, while simultaneously assuming the feeling of energy and clarity. This integration creates a blueprint for the hours that follow, a template for how you'll move through your day. Let me guide you through the unexpected discovery about mental prime times, how research into chronobiology reveals specific windows during your morning when cognitive programming becomes up to 5 times more effective than at any other time of day. If you've experienced how taking action generates motivation rather than waiting for motivation to inspire action, share "Action ignites motivation" in the comments. Chronobiology research reveals a fascinating discovery about your morning brain. There exists what scientists call an ultradian window, approximately 45–90 minutes after waking, when your neural pathways are uniquely receptive to new programming. During this specific time frame, cognitive imprinting becomes up to 5 times more effective than at any other point in your 24-hour cycle. This hidden prime time creates an unprecedented opportunity for transformation. What makes this window so powerful is its position at the intersection of heightened neuroplasticity and conscious awareness. You're awake enough to direct your thoughts, yet still connected to deeper brain states that facilitate permanent change. The most successful individuals throughout history have intuitively leveraged this window, often without understanding the biological mechanism behind their results. The revelation that transforms your approach to this prime time comes in understanding that how you start isn't sufficient. You must maintain your momentum throughout the day. Many people begin their mornings with fire and enthusiasm only to fizzle by noon, surrendering their hard-won momentum to distractions, difficulties, or simple fatigue. True power emerges from consistency and endurance, from finishing stronger than you started. Persistence in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret of success, Goddard would remind us. This insight illuminates why maintaining your chosen state matters more than the initial burst of enthusiasm. The brain responds not to momentary intensity, but to sustained direction. Neural pathways strengthen through consistent activation rather than occasional spikes. The blueprint for this sustained momentum begins with a counterintuitive approach to action, eliminating the gap between decision and implementation. Procrastination functions as a silent thief, whispering, "You can do it later," while systematically dismantling your creative power. This seemingly innocent delay creates neurological resistance that compounds with each postponement until later inevitably becomes never. "Immortal man, you are immortal now," Goddard declared with characteristic directness. This statement carries an urgency that transcends philosophical contemplation. It demands immediate embodiment of your highest potential. Perfect conditions never arrive. Only now exists as a portal for manifestation. Every moment of delay represents life force diverted from creation. The paradoxical discovery that transforms your productivity emerges when you understand that focus creates energy rather than consuming it. When your mind scatters across multiple tasks, projects, and concerns, your limited attention fragments, leaving you mentally and physically drained. But when you direct your full consciousness toward one thing, you experience a surprising influx of energy, almost as if the act of focusing itself generates power. Attention directed from some state will result in change of state, Goddard taught. This insight reveals the mechanism behind focus-generated energy. Your attention doesn't just observe reality, it actively transforms it, beginning with your own inner state. By directing your focus with precision, you literally change the energetic frequency of your being. The ultimate realization in this entire exploration of morning consciousness is both liberating and challenging. No one else is coming to save your day or make it meaningful. As Goddard proclaimed with powerful clarity, you are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe it is the only reason you do not see it. This truth places both the responsibility and the glory squarely in your hands. Let me guide you through the three-step morning blueprint that integrates all these principles into a cohesive practice that takes less than 20 minutes, yet fundamentally transforms how your brain processes reality throughout the entire day. If you recognize your own power to shape reality through focused attention, share "Attention Shapes Reality" in the comments below. The three-step morning blueprint I've shared today integrates these principles into a practice that takes less than 20 minutes, but transforms your entire day. And that's the real revelation here. Transformation doesn't require hours of complex routines, just consistent application of these fundamental truths about consciousness and reality. I've witnessed this approach create extraordinary shifts, not just in my life, but in thousands of others who've implemented these principles. The morning mind truly is the most powerful creative force we possess when we learn to harness it intentionally rather than surrendering it unconsciously. You know, I created this channel because I believe these insights are too powerful to keep to myself. Each video builds on the last, creating a complete framework for conscious living. If you found value in what we've explored today, consider becoming part of this growing community by subscribing. I pour everything I have into these videos, and your subscription tells me these ideas matter to you too. I'd love to know you made it to the end of our journey together today. Drop "Morning Mastery Activated" in the comments if these principles resonated with you. Your perspective matters to me. I read every comment personally and use them to shape future content. If you found value in today's exploration, a simple like creates ripples beyond what you might imagine. It helps others discover these same principles and supports this channel's mission of conscious awakening. I've created a video that perfectly complements what we've discussed today. It explores the evening routine that magnifies your morning practice exponentially. Click right here and let's continue this journey together. The morning creates momentum, but what you do before sleep determines how effectively that momentum builds day after day. I'll see you over there.